my little song.
I love it. It is Wednesday, which means it's time for Hump Day Exchange. Our amazing hosts, Elizabeth and Michael. We
I
lost
think we
someone.
lost her. We lost her.
I think she was frozen anyway.
Oh,
Well, I'll go ahead. Our amazing hosts, Elizabeth and Michael, are here to make sure all the right questions get asked. Tonight, we are honored to be joined by Senator Julia Kirt, Minority Leader of the Oklahoma Senate. She represents District 30, covering Oklahoma City, Bethany, and War Acres, and she's been a strong voice on mental health, education, and supporting Oklahoma families. And
She's back.
she is in the house with us. Okay, perfect. I was just introducing you.
great.
Senator Kirk, we're so excited to have you with us tonight. To start us off, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into public service?
Yeah, absolutely. Give me a thumbs up if you're hearing me, because I'm stressing about my Wi-Fi, so I switched and we'll see. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me. So, I was really ran for office because I was an angry mom. I got very concerned when they made cuts in my kids' school. My kids went to our neighborhood public school and they started cutting things as soon as my kids arrived. And really that was leading up to the budget failures when we had big budget failures at the state capitol. And I'd been an artist, had been involved with artists for years, had helped them with their businesses and advocacy. But it was really when my kids started getting affected that I paid more attention and found out just how bad the decisions were that were being made at the Capitol. And it was so alarming when I started watching closer how we had people that wouldn't even get back to us. We had sitting state senators who would say that what we were telling them wasn't true. And they were things that we had seen in our own kids' classrooms, like that they had too many kids in the classroom, that they didn't have an assistant, that we didn't have special education options that we needed. And they would literally say, they would just gaslight and say, like, no, that's not the case. That's not the law. And it was so alarming to me that I got more involved and really committed to run shortly after that. Got elected in 2018 and proud to serve Northwest Oklahoma City, Bethany, and War Acres.
Perfect. What a great rundown. What a switch. I know Elizabeth is going to kick us off, Miss Ma'am.
Hey, so real quick, Senator Kirt, is this your last election cycle, or are you up for re-election in 2026?
Yeah, I will. So we serve 4-year terms, and I am up for re-election next year.
Okay,
So
good.
I will. Yeah, so we can serve a total of 12 years. If I get reelected next year, that would be my last option. I would term out in 2030 if I'm reelected next year.
Okay, oh good. So we can have you for another year. So we got it. Yay, she's on here with us. So I'm really happy to have you on here. I know that I kind of chat with you often because mental health is my passion, and that happens to be one of your interim studies and your levels of what you deal with.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that it's also an education. So there's so many questions. I know I give you things all the time. So I will ask you about mental health in our schools.
Yeah.
Because I think I was really disturbed by the fact that, I didn't realize there was a huge backlog of getting people into the jails for mental health and into the schools for mental health. I did not realize, because we do that as agencies. We already do that. So it was like, well, what's really going on? So I know that they were talking about like taking counselors out of the schools. And I'm like,
Well, you all may have already celebrated, but I haven't gotten to celebrate with you that a certain superintendent has stepped down and he's out. So, we at least get to breathe a quick sigh of relief that Superintendent Walters is gone. Really so much that we'll have to unpack in terms of the things that he's wrecked and destroyed and undercut. And Republicans have enabled him the whole time. We will be working on that, going forward. What are the things that we can rebuild? Like, what do we need to do to make things better? But one of those big things was we were making progress on trying to get more counselors in our public schools and trying to make sure kids were getting interventions earlier, because, what we all know is the longer people wait to get a diagnosis for a mental health condition or
No, we lost
Oh
her.
no.
Like, we're
She said
right
she was
here.
having problems with her Wi-Fi,
Yeah,
so
but
I'm
she'll have
sure
fun.
she will be, yeah,
It's like
back
a
up.
magic.
Just momentarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm super glad to hear that. Like they're actually gonna like kind of like be working on that again because it's really sad. Like as a provider, like that I used to be able to go into the schools and see kids, but a lot of that's been cut back.
My mom used to too when she was an LCSW.
That's right. We talked about
She,
that.
yeah, she would go into all kinds of different schools all over the state. Her agency covered not just the Oklahoma City area, and I think it was basically the western half of Oklahoma that her agency covered. And she was like, "Yeah, I'll drive. I don't mind." And so they would send her, and she'd go. Her problem though was some of the principals would not allow their uh, kids to be pulled out during school hours for counseling,
There she
which is
is.
crazy. Yeah, we'll get her right back up.
Yay!
I'm so sorry, guys. I
No,
really
It's totally
I do a
fine.
lot of
you're
streaming
good.
things and don't normally have these issues. So
Oh no, you're
I
good.
probably gave a whole monologue, but I was basically just talking about the need for more resources in our schools because we know more about mental health, we know more about learning disabilities, but we have so few school psychologists, very few counselors, and we need to have about twice as many school counselors as we have to hit even the national averages that we need. And Superintendent Hoffmeister, Joy Hoffmeister, had made a real investment in that. She had made a big plan working with school districts to match local money, used every bit of that federal pandemic money she could to match. So we got more counselors in schools. And a lot of districts have committed to that. But then, Walters pulled that money. He got rid of basically the whole division that did social and emotional learning and helped support districts. We have a lot of school districts that might not have tons of people available to them in a small town. They may not have local mental health resources. Like they may not know what to do when there's a crisis. And so we used to have a division of the Department of Education that could help. Hope we can rebuild that. But
Yeah.
basically all around, we need to make sure kids are getting access earlier. We have community behavioral health centers all across the state. They're facing big cuts, which is a whole different conversation we can take. But I know that they're trying to work with their school districts to get assistance for kids. For a long time, Oklahoma had one of the longest lags between the symptoms of mental health conditions and diagnosis, which is the time when a chronic disease gets worse. So we had kids that might show signs of a mental health condition at 12 and not get diagnosed till 21, 22, 23. That's just a long time to be in crisis and to have lots of other life challenges come up because of that.
Yeah, I do know that even the kids, the youth, there are very few children's.
In the whole state, every time I say it, I'm shocked. I believe there's 33 or 34 child psychiatrists in our state. It's really, I talked to a woman who is at OSU Tulsa, who's a psychiatrist, and she leads a residency. She said it feels like being in a third world country because they spend so little time with patients. They're pulled from and it's only the worst cases that they see, and it's because it's medication, and so they don't really get to help with ongoing treatment. It's not healthy, and we have to work on that behavioral workforce. But meanwhile, we're over here cutting, basic services for mental health. So we're not doing that next level that we were working on for a while, which was earlier intervention, prevention, diversion, 988, hoping to divert people so they don't go to jail just because they're having delusions or suicide ideations. We have to have better systems, and we started putting those in place, and now I feel like it's getting dismantled.
We made so much progress. Like it makes tears. We have made so much progress.
Yeah.
Michael or Tiffany, do you have any?
I had a quick question since we're on the mental health kick right now. They just got rid of Prime, which was the Project Rural Innovation for Mental Health Enhancement, and that was a federal grant for OU. I don't know if you're familiar, but they just cut it 2 years early. Do you see anything like that coming down the pipeline to help that type of scenario?
Well, I mean, these federal cuts are really especially hard on states like Oklahoma because we haven't invested in ourselves locally. And I'm really concerned that we're not going to fill in the gaps where the feds pull back money. I mean, you saw it with the State Department of Health. Like that was the big state Doge thing they did was send back money from the pandemic. Well, when should Oklahoma ever send a dime of health money back? Like we need every bit of it, right? And I feel the same way about all these other grants, especially like ending grants early. It's just so cruel because we put in place something, we put in place staff to get it done and serve people, and then they're cutting it early. So I hope our state doesn't start also doing that. But I'm nervous about whether we're going to fill any gaps because we already know we're going to face a gap with SNAP, the food benefits. The feds are going to require states to pay for the administration of that. Well, that's a big amount for Oklahoma. And there's several other cuts like that came with the so-called big, beautiful bill that are going to hurt Oklahoma's budget. And so I think we're not going to be able to cover things that even if they're proven successful, that's what makes me sad. Even if they're shown to have very good outcomes, I don't see my colleagues jumping up and filling those gaps. But we'll fight. We'll fight for it. There's no question we'll fight for it.
Always.
Keep fighting. Yeah, that gets disturbing sometimes. Michael, what do you got for us?
I'm gonna go super basic with you, Senator Kirt.
Right.
So what is a Senate minority leader, and what influence do you have on the legislature here in Oklahoma?
Great. Thanks for asking that. Sometimes we get at the state capitol, we get kind of like tunnel vision because we're in it and we forget the things that you don't know until you're in there, which is how things run at the capitol is based around who you have as allies, and it very much breaks down on party lines. And so if I talk about party, I'm not trying to like hold up my party flag, but I think that what you have to understand is up there, the rules are written by the majority party. So the way that our legislature's set up, whoever has the majority coalition literally writes the rules. And so they decide who's in leadership, they decide what bills get heard. And so they are writing the agendas and setting the course, basically. And that has always been by party in Oklahoma since the beginning. So the minority party is the one with fewer members. So we have 48 state senators who serve 4-year terms. You have to have 25 of those people to have a majority. And we only have 8 right now, 8 Democrats in there. So we numerically don't have a lot of direct leverage in general. But we have worked really hard to cultivate good relationships. And we also try to know the rules as we can so that we leverage every bit we can. Because there's been a tradition in the state Senate of fairness around things like we can ask questions. We can, like Senate, we're allowed to ask as many questions as we want, debate as long as we want on the floor. Unlike the House has rules around time limits on questions, that kind of stuff. So there's some things where just because of the tradition of the Senate, we get some latitude that allows us to really push our colleagues and also push important messages in meetings. Really, what it comes down to is who makes those decisions about what's getting heard. And actually, that the person who's the pro tem, that's the leader of the Senate, it's a Republican because the Republican majority. They actually run the whole place too, like operationally. It's kind of weird. They're like officially the boss, which is a strange thing. And then they negotiate with the House around things and with the governor. So in the minority, we don't always have direct leverage, but we have a lot of relationships that we work on. So like we're always talking to our colleagues behind the scenes, sometimes in public, but sometimes it's more effective if we go to them directly and ask them to change things or pull things back. We try to get them to carry our ideas sometimes because it's an extra challenge for us to get bills through and get ideas moving. So sometimes we'll talk them into taking on an idea because, the most important thing to me is that it get done, not that I get credit for it. And then we do have leverage in votes. So especially in committee, we're very diligent about our committee work. So all the bills get assigned to committees that are based around subjects. And then there's votes at the committee level. And then if the bill passes committee, it can get heard on the Senate floor, which means the whole Senate hears it. And each step of the way is kind of a filter for bills, and it can stop bills. And the committee level is one of the easiest ways, not easy. It is one of the most likely ways to actually stop things. So we try to make sure we're very diligent about that, asking questions, being present, calling out rule violations, amending whenever we can. And the same thing happens on the floor, but not a tradition of, you don't do amendments on the floor very much, that kind of stuff. So we're always trying to follow the rules and also leverage them. So like last year, for instance, tell me if I'm getting too geeky, because this is like procedural. But like last year, there was a bill presented by a legislator, and they put an amendment on it that made it a totally different subject matter. And so we objected to that based on the rules that they're not allowed to just change bills. And frankly, that bill itself wasn't that bad. But we wanted to show them that we know the rules, and then we're not going to let them just run whatever they want whenever they please. And hopefully that'll give us more time, which also gives advocates more time on bills. And so we objected, and the presiding officer who runs the floor gets to say whether it follows the rule or not. And he had to rule with us because it's just very clear. So he ruled in our favor, so this bill didn't get heard. And it was kind of a wake-up call for our Republican colleagues that we're watching everything. We're going to call it out, and you can be hypocrites and not let us prevail, but you know what the rule says. And if we're following rules, we're going to work. So, I mean, one thing we rely on is procedures, because when we don't have a majority, we've got to use every tool we have.
Nice.
We work on issues, each of us can file bills. We can file in the Senate as many bills as we want. I try to really focus around, I'll have some bills that are just dreams, things I wish I could get moving, but I know will be very hard up there. And then I'll usually have some bills that are really the ones I'm pushing that I think might be able to get some leverage with my colleagues. And so we do that. And then we also partner with other people on bills.
Awesome. Speaking of bills, sorry, Elizabeth, you go ahead.
So I want to touch back.
Again.
Okay, you're good. So you had said how, everybody, since they are the majority party and they basically run everything. I know that it was in the chat was like, that's ridiculous. How can we change that? Like, what can we, and I want to ask also, is this also in correlation with asking for a special session? So how do we change this? Like, what can we do? What can we do to help you? Did it freeze it? Oh, no.
At least it didn't kick her off.
There it is.
Look, yay!
Let's see if it's going to work.
Oh, I like this. That's good. Bills for eviction protection.
Yeah, I'd save that. I wanna know about that one.
Oh yeah, that's your wheelhouse. Well, I mean, it affects me too, but more with you. I mean, you run that. I just try to house people, and now I'm like, don't lose your voucher because I cannot house you.
It's a good question for both of us, for sure. Both of us to know.
I think you're good, Julia.
Yeah, we can see you. Can you not see us?
No, weird. It's on my end. It shows it as blocked. It says pause, but you can see me right now.
Yeah.
Good.
And hear you good.
All right. Well, sorry if I gave another monologue without being on air, but
Okay. Yeah, we want to be respectful of your time. So Michael, are you guys in agreement about asking about the bills for eviction protections?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the chat, Julia, it talks about what about new bills for eviction protections?
Oh man, this is such a hard issue, and I some of you who've been following along know that I've been working on this for quite a few years. I'll just say any change around the Landlord-Tenant Act is so hard up there. I'll just say, as you can imagine, there's a lot of people in office who are landlords, and even people I would consider probably good landlords are nervous about giving up any of their power or giving up any of their time. And so I've been pushing them on it hard, and we've worked every angle we can. Last year, we got through a bill that would have extended the timeline between an eviction filing and when the hearing could happen, and the governor vetoed it, unfortunately. So I think while Stitt is here, I don't think it's worth trying that same bill because clearly he's going to side with landlords. And I had real challenges in the Senate and the House. We barely got it through. So I'm going to try one slightly. I mean, all we're asking for is 5 days. It's the craziest thing to me. Like, we're asking for 5 days so that people can try to come up with their rent, or they can try to negotiate, or they can try to defend themselves if they actually, think they have a case to not be evicted. We know that people aren't getting due process right now. So I'm going to file one that specifically just names that you get the weekend and holidays don't count against your timeline. I know that it's not nearly enough. I know it is, but I just don't think with this governor that I can get anything through that's more stringent. I know that there's a couple of folks working on sealing eviction records, because one of the challenges is with civil case like that, your eviction's on your record publicly on OSCN forever, like forever. And it's something that can be looked at by, potential employers. And I know it makes it really hard for people to get housing. So I've been working really hard on that. But there's some members up there who really want everything to be transparent forever. They don't care if it was 30 years ago. They don't think it's fair. They think it's fair. I don't think so. So I'll keep pushing on that issue. And then I'm really working on housing supply. Even though it won't help anyone today, if we don't start ourselves on a better course towards having more affordable housing and more workforce housing, we're not going to get there. We are already like 20 years behind most states, sometimes 30. And so that's why we've seen this huge influx of capital into that market. People are making a ton of money on it, and you just can't find a place,
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when they cut those resources and funding.
Yeah. Oh, I know. The other eviction bill I do have to mention, anti-retaliation. So Oklahoma is one of the only states that doesn't have anti-retaliation. So like if a tenant reports their landlord that there's a problem, or if they tell them that they're having an issue, right now landlords can really kick them out. They don't. There's no reason that they couldn't just choose to evict someone and make up a reason. And we need anti-retaliation measures in place to try to limit that, because we have a lot of big landlords that have lawyers and are just making this part of their business plan to evict people and get those extra fees and fines, and they don't want people complaining. We need tenants to have more power in this situation,
Yeah, it's hard.
I do have a question about resources. So what kind of resources? I work in property management.
right?
What kind of resources could I refer to my residents if they have issues with paying rent? Because that's literally the last part of my job that I hate is
I bet it
people.
is. I bet it
It's
is. It's so tough. I've talked, every landlord I've talked to that, like, I had the apartment association at the beginning was against my bill, and we ended up working together, and I changed it a little bit, and they were like, look, we're for your bill. We just need people to get paid more. Like they were telling me that they're all for minimum wage increase because they know that people aren't getting paid enough to cover their wages. There are very few rent resources, but in Oklahoma City, Upward Transition gets some money, and the Community Action Agency gets some rental assistance money. And then there's a few other places that'll do one time here and there. It's really few and far between, which is upsetting. And then right now, legal aid can represent people, but only if they fall in certain thresholds. And it's very hard in that timeline to help them, like to make a payment plan, because there's a lot of agencies that they may not want to evict someone, but they need to have a guarantee that they have a plan for how they're going to repay. Mm-hmm. And what I understand is if people fall behind more than a month, it's just so impossible to catch up.
Yeah.
And it's hard when you're relying on your community resources, but they're relying on the Department of Mental Health paying their bills so that we can help these people. So
yeah, totally. I do think if people have a disability or a mental health condition diagnosis, there are more resources available. And of course, for veterans, there are more expedited subsidies available. But right now, I think that the waiting list for Section 8 in Oklahoma County is, what is it, like a year and a half long?
7 years.
Yeah.
7 years. And
I mean, they closed it out, right?
Public housing and Section 8. You can't even apply Section. And this week. I talked to them on the phone myself.
That's awful.
So I had to tell somebody, do not lose your voucher because I
Yeah.
cannot house you. Hear
Well,
me
then-
when I say, like, I had to re-emphasize.
But that's tough because sometimes people get a voucher and then they're only given, what, 60 days to get a place?
You can get
And
an
sometimes they
extension.
can't find a place in that
Yeah.
time frame.
So you can get an extension.
Good.
Sometimes they don't know that, but if they're actually working with the community,
Then you will tell them.
then we
Yeah.
will tell them. Or we
Good.
will go with them, or we will help them. Absolutely.
Well, do you want to talk mental health real quick before I have to hop
I'm
off?
cool with
'Cause
that. Are you guys cool
I
with
just-
that?
Yeah.
I know that we talked a little bit about the mental health cuts, and I mean, personally, what I think we're seeing is, Governor Stitt has this whole efficiency mindset, run like a business and wants fewer state employees. But what we really have to look at is the people and are we serving people well? And when we see that, Oklahoma just got called out for not complying with our settlement and people are sitting in jail, not able to get treatment so that they can even stand trial, we know that we're falling short. And we've heard it so many different ways. If people are ending up on the streets, if people are ending up in ERs and jails, we are failing that prevention. And that's the kind of things that are being cut right now are access to outpatient substance use treatment, access to transportation. Clearly people need help with those things to get along. And what we know people can succeed in recovery if they're given the right supports. And what we're hearing is, these cuts are going to really affect the availability of people being able to get access to care, getting beds when they need them, getting treatment when they need them. And also all those wraparound things like family supports. How does your family help you? There's a family advocacy organization called the Oklahoma Family Network that got, I think, a third of their funding cut overnight, and they're the ones trying to help families know how to navigate the system and get their loved one care. I mean, these are the things that can't be overlooked. And I think we're going to see some bad consequences from this very soon. These cuts are going to lead to some worse crisis.
Oh, it's already starting. Like, it's the writing's on the wall.
Yeah. And I think I said to you, the legislature could choose to fund it. We have a lot of money that was set back in a cash reserve. And I'm not even talking about our so-called savings. We have a ton in savings, but we also have a cash reserve because during the pandemic, all the support that Biden sent to our state, we didn't spend it all at once, right? And so we could be funding these things and then carefully decide if there's some things that should be cut back. Cutting it and saying, we'll see if it makes a difference, we'll see if there's a problem, is not the right approach because we're going to have people entering deeper crisis. We're going to hurt families. We're going to have more suicides, more hospitalizations, more jail visits. And so we could have a special session that takes either the governor calling it or 2/3 of the legislature. One of the reasons I haven't talked about it much is because I've asked around and I do not see that we have a majority that would support it. And so I don't want to put that out there and get people's hopes up it's going to happen. But if we had a grassroots movement across the state that was pushing for that, there would be some urgency. Otherwise, we're not going to revisit this till February. And I think a lot of things, it'll be too late in February, Yeah.
It's very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To do that.
Well, I so appreciate you all. Sorry for cutting it short, but glad to
so
be
glad.
on, and I'm glad to come back again. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
I love
definitely.
keeping you going.
Great. So we got some stuff coming up. I'm going to text you and see if you can meet us out sometime. So
Great.
thank you
Excellent.
for joining us so much.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Overnight. Good night.